guys, it's Danny. Alrighty, today we're gonna discuss about how to prevent a bad orchid order, and if we receive some bad orchids, what to do about it. You might know that recently I did purchase something and it didn't really arrive to me in very good shape. So first of all, let's see how to prevent having a very bad day when this happens. But Danny, are you implying that bad orders will happen sooner or later to everybody? Yes, that's exactly what I'm implying. The more you will order, the more you will increase your chance of actually receiving a pretty not okay looking orchid. It's normal. Don't worry. Not only do nurseries work with thousands and thousands of live orchids, but also transport doesn't necessarily depend on them. It depends on the courier, post office workers, and transit, and many other things that have nothing to do with the orchid nursery. So because they rely on third parties for the transport, you cannot guarantee that an orchid will be received in one piece by the buyer. Phones, TVs, pieces of furniture, gadgets, they all have this risk of being damaged on transport. Imagine a live being such as an orchid. And also, yeah, we're dealing with live things. They will be in a box for 1 to 2 weeks without air, water, light, and ventilation. Of course they will be in a bad mood, and of course they will be more susceptible to disease because of this level of stress. And if we are dealing with pretty sensitive individuals, they will react and respond to the stress factors. So if you imagine you're gonna have beautiful and healthy orchids every time you order, stop. It's not gonna happen. The more you will order, the more you're prone to getting a dud. And eventually you will. But there are ways to decrease your chance of actually receiving a very sick or bad orchid. And even if you receive such an orchid, there are ways to actually make your day a little better. So that's what we're going to talk about today. First, prevention. So being that we cannot actually see the orchids that will be sent to us, we cannot pick them, we kind of need to go with trust. And trusting a vendor is something you should never do. If you don't want to have a potential very bad experience, what you should do is Google a little bit that vendor and see what other customers are saying about them. In most cases, you will find forums or blogs or YouTube videos with unboxings or people expressing their opinions and their impressions about this company. It's always good to read reviews, just like you would read the reviews on Amazon, for example, for a particular product or for a vendor. However, when you do read a review, try to apply a little bit of common sense. Some people might be pissed that their orchid is 1 centimeter smaller than what they thought it was. Or they might complain that the vendor did not send them a greeting card or a bonus plant, and so on. And maybe those things, even though important for that person, they might not be important for you. So try to get the essence of what you see and what you read and put it through your own filter. In many cases, if people receive less orchids than they ordered and then they never get a reply back, or they received a bad orchid but the vendor didn't want to refund them, or didn't want to replace it, or didn't want to respond to emails, or things of the sorts, that's the alarming part. As I was saying, bad orchids will happen. How the vendors deal with them, that's important. And when people have a very bad experience with the vendor, not the orchid itself, they're more prone to write about it, make a video about it, or complain about it somehow. That's what you need to see first. Speaking about vendors, most of them are online nurseries. I'm not referring here to places where you can actually go and see the orchids, just online sources. Check the description down below for my video about ordering orchids. In the description of that video, I do have a list, depending on territory, a list that was made with my viewers. And if you read the comments, I'm sure you will find some recommendations or anti-recommendations if you're looking for an online nursery and you don't know which one to choose. Also, I have a sort of guide on how to purchase orchids on eBay, because on eBay we're dealing with private sellers, not really companies. And when it comes to private sellers, their responsibility is a lot more limited in some cases. So I do have a guide on what to look for on eBay as well. Check it down below. It's really interesting because on eBay, people sell back bulbs as mature orchids or orchid seeds, which is just a scam, and so on. It's really useful to see, so check that video as well. Bottom line, a little detective work before you purchase is always good. So now let's say that you already have a vendor in mind, be it an online nursery or a private seller. Check their refund policy or return policy. although it's not really common to return orchids. Most vendors do have a refund policy if you receive a bad orchid, so you have to read what they expect you to do in order to get that refund. Most of the times you will need to take pictures the moment you open the package, not wait and try to take care of the orchid and then have the orchid die. Even in these cases, some sellers will still refund you, but do check the policy. Some vendors, on the other hand, do not have a refund policy. They have no refunds, no returns, no nothing. That is something that I personally never go for. If I see no refunds, there shall be no orders. But you might be different. The no refund policy, however, can be applied if we are dealing with very small sellers or special orchids or very expensive orchids or one-of-a-kind orchids and so on and so forth. It's understandable to some extent. So yet again, a little prevention doesn't hurt. Check the refund policy. If you have a bad orchid, at least get refunded or get a replacement for that orchid. So now let's presume you've already done your investigative work. You read about the seller and the seller has good reviews. You also read the refund policy and the seller is willing to give you a refund in case of damaged goods. Now let's talk about when to order. Because yes, there is such a thing as a no order time of the year depending on your territory. If you live in climates or zones which experience a very harsh winter, that's the no-no season. Some sellers absolutely refuse to send orchids starting from November until April or whenever their weather clears up. That's a very good practice. And that's something that I met with Schwerter, but nobody else. Everybody's kind of willing to send orchids, and the responsibility falls on you to take a good decision regarding your orchids. If the temperatures are very low, orchids can actually suffer a lot on transport. Many times deposits are not heated up and orchids can actually experience freezing conditions during transport. Now some companies provide heat packs, provide insulated boxes and so on and so forth. In my experience, that doesn't help much because transport is usually about a week. At least in Europe. If you're ordering from the United States, from a different state, it might be different. If you're ordering from your own town, again, it might be different. But let's take a standard transport of a week. Well, those heat packs are only guaranteed for 2 days. The rest of the 5 days, hope for the best. So if you're thinking about making that really huge haul that you put money aside for all year round, do not order orchids when it's freezing cold outside. Just don't do it. In the summertime, things might be a little better depending what you're ordering. If you're ordering cool-growing orchids, it's not a good idea in the heat of the summer either. Again, deposits are not cooled, they're not heated, and cargo cars, again, they might not be temperature controlled in the environment in which the boxes sit. So in the summertime, better go with the warm-growing orchids. In the autumn and spring with the cooler-growing orchids, and in winter, if you know it's a very, very cold winter, just don't do it. Try to resist it. Or if you do order, take into account that you might get a box of dead orchids. So you've made your homework in the nursery or seller checks out, you made sure they have a good refund policy, you made sure you're not in the cold season, you order, and you should be safe, you should receive really good orchids. Wrong. You can actually receive bad orchids. Hey, look at this, remember? I ordered myself an orchid, which by the way, I did order. I just forgot to take it out of the cart, so there we go. Bottom line, I did pay for it. And look at it, when I received it, all of the leaves fell. The first thing you need to do is whip out your phone and take some pictures. Yes, take as many pictures from different angles. Do not remove the tags, do not remove packaging a lot. Leave the orchid as intact as possible, just so the vendor knows it came from him and it recognizes the packaging method. Then send these pictures that moment, in that instant, to the seller through their contact form, email, eBay form, whatever they have at their disposal, and be very polite about it. It's not their fault many of the times, and even if it is, if you're angry and are disrespectful, you won't get a lot of things in the future. Maybe the seller was thinking to refund you and send you a bonus orchid just because they felt bad, but if you act rude about it, no bonus orchid, refund, and that's it. And the next time you order, you're not gonna get a bonus plant then either. And the next time you order, they're gonna remember you. And they're not gonna tell you about their new offer, discount for being a good client. No. So, be respectful. It's always good. So write to them that you received this orchid and this is what happened, and please see the pictures attached. Can I please get a refund or a replacement or a voucher, a discount voucher, and things of the sorts. Work it out politely with the seller, and in 99 to 100% of the cases you will get refunded, or you will get a voucher, or you will get a replacement, whatever you decide with the seller. And that's the most important thing when it comes to vendors, the way they treat their customers and how they handle bad situations. And PS, a little update on mine, I did get refunded in the very same day. I didn't ask for a replacement. I might get something else because I will try to actually save this orchid, although I don't know what's gonna happen. But this Angraecum, he's more of a cool grower and my environment is really hot, reason why I thought I removed it from my cart, but apparently I didn't. I might have clicked on it and maybe my internet had a little mishap and I didn't remove it from my cart. I didn't even notice I paid for it. What to do. But anyway, I'll try to take care of it together with my other Angraecums. But anyway, this leads me to my last tip when it comes to bad orders. Try to actually salvage the orchid you got. Sometimes it might not be salvageable. Sometimes it might be so set back and just in such a poor shape that you will not see flowers or you will not see it flourish for years. But it's always good experience to try and save it. And since it's a live thing that deserves some respect, do try to save it. So that's what I shall do together with you. Today I will try to save my poor Angraecum because as you can see all the leaves fell, but I am left with quite the clean orchid. Not the happiest, but at least cleaner than it used to be. So of course I will repot this orchid, so I take a look at the root system as well and perform my treatments. And of course I will use semi-hydroponics for this orchid as my Angraecums really seem to love this method in my very hot climate. So just like with any other orchid, I will just remove it from its pot. And see, the root system is actually in pretty good condition. This orchid is definitely worth saving. And I don't actually need to mess around with the roots too much because you can see the medium is actually very fresh. So this orchid had all the chances to actually be healthy and happy with a good root system. So see, one little mistake can ruin a perfectly healthy and well cared for orchid. So depending on what the orchid suffers from, you can take the appropriate measures. Mine was suffering from some fungal attacks, which is actually common with orchids on transport. So in this instance, of course, you have two options. You can go the route of fungicides, systemic fungicides, or if you have an issue with the toxicity levels, such as me, you can go the route of non-toxic treatments that in most cases are not systemic. So my preferred method is to use hydrogen peroxide 3%. This actually heals nothing, it is not systemic. The good thing is, it's a disinfectant. So what I will do is spray the root system of the orchid just to eliminate possible snails, but also the stem of the orchid because my rotting issues occurred on the stem. What I will not spray is the crown because I cannot get the water out from this very thin crown. So that's a no-no, but everything else will get sprayed. And what I want to do is just limit the fungus and pathogens as much as possible so I don't transfer them in my new setup. Maybe in this way I'm gonna help the orchid fight off whatever pathogens it had. Because orchids can actually fight off disease on their own. They do have an immune system. So I'm gonna let this fizz for a minute or so and I'm going to rinse my leca. So I have my pot prepared. I'm just going to pot the orchid as usual. And my orchid is ready. What I will do now is just place it outside on my terrace where wind blows from all sorts of directions just to make sure that water evaporates in time. And then I'm going to try to offer it the conditions this orchid prefers, and who knows, maybe it's gonna do okay in my climate as well, maybe it's a vigorous grower, who knows, but at least I gave it a chance. And pretty much that's how you avoid or you save the day in case of a bad orchid order. The more you order orchids from different sellers, the more you will have your own preferences. You will like certain sellers more for the way they pack their orchids or for how fast they respond to messages and so on. So in time you will have your favorites and you'll know what to look for, but if you've never ordered before, I hope this video was useful. So let's end it here. You know the drill. If you've enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Check the links in the description as well. They are related to ordering orchids. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye!